Hello, classic rock fans. I am here today to talk a little bit about what I believe is some of the worst news for classic rock in 2024. This was announced just recently. Things seemed to escalate very quickly, and it has left a lot of people confused. So I'm going to try and go through the story as best I can with the limited information that's out there in public and talk about what I think it means for the future. Now, if you're not familiar, just a couple of days ago, REO Speedwagon announced that they were going to be ending all touring and basically retiring as a band, shutting the band down as of January 1st, 2025. I'm recording this on September 19th. 2024, so we are now in the last days of REO Speedwagon, and they still have a couple of concert dates to wrap up before the end of the year. Now, a lot of these dates are makeup dates because the band's been snake bit by health issues actually all through the year, and that's a big part of why the band is coming to an end, but that's like the official reason. So what started all this is that Bruce Hall, the longtime bass player for REO Speedwagon, went to get back surgery for an injury he sustained, I guess, a couple of years ago, and he was basically slated to be out of the band for all of 2024. He was going to be off the road to recover and then come back once he was given approval by his doctor. Well, at some point this summer, Bruce's official Facebook page started posting about how he had doctor's approval, perhaps a little early. I don't know if it was on schedule, if it was early, but he had approval to get back on the road. He would just have to play while sitting through the show. And apparently that wasn't satisfactory to lead singer Kevin Cronin and the management of REO Speedwagon, so he was not allowed to rejoin them for the tour that they were on this summer. That was a co-headlining tour with Train, but this issue with Bruce being in recovery from his back surgery and feeling that he was ready to come out on the road escalated, and it came to a head just a couple of days ago. And the end result is that REO Speedwagon is not letting him come back on stage. And beyond that, they're going to shut down altogether and go their own separate ways. Now, if you haven't been following this, there have been some warning signs. The big one came in late August. I want to say it was posted on August 29th. Bruce Hall's daughter, who's a recording artist herself, went on social media and basically said, "Hey, REO fans, my dad's been cleared to play on stage again, but the band's not letting him join the tour. What's going on with that? Maybe we can get a hashtag going. Hashtag where's Bruce, you know?" Basically, she was sounding the alarm for the fans. And that's a social media tactic, obviously, and I took that as a gigantic red flag of some seriously bad news that was imminent. And I hate to say it, I was right, but I didn't expect this news. I didn't think this was going to be the end result. Bruce's daughter went on social media, I suspect, I could be wrong, but I suspect because she had basically the intel that Bruce wasn't going to be welcomed back into the band anytime soon and was not liking what the future was going to look like in the band, and having exhausted whatever negotiations they've done up until this point, she decided maybe some fan pressure on REO's management, specifically on Kevin Cronin, maybe that would get them to change their mind. Okay, obviously that wasn't going to happen. I hate to say it, but her going on social media and posting a video like that probably was like the first a whole bunch of fans even heard Bruce was not touring with them this summer. I love Bruce Hall, okay? I'm not coming at this from a hater perspective at all, so please don't take it as that. But if the bass player is out for a band that's always been famously kind of faceless, like REO Speedwagon, there's not going to be a huge backlash. And there's been some people posting in support of this hashtag Where's Bruce, but not a whole lot. All this to say is that when Bruce's daughter posted on social media that there was a problem in the band, that, to me at least, was not something that was going to rally the fans to get him back in the band. That was more of a, hey fans, get ready for some bad news because push is coming to shove, and when it gets to that point, nobody really wins. And that's what's happened. So, REO Speedwagon puts out this statement here, and I'll just read from it, because it's bizarre. It's the most, statement by committee I've ever read in my life. So very quickly, to our fans, Bruce has intended to be back on the road again by now. Ugh. If it were up... Okay, putting a pun of your own song in a fucking band breakup statement is weird. I'll just start with that. If it were up to just him, he'd be back on tour, ... But it's not up to just him. The consensus opinion was that he had not recovered sufficiently to be able to perform at the level that fans have come to expect. Bruce respected that opinion and is grateful that Matt has been around to keep the wagon rolling through the summer tour. Bruce never had any intention of retiring or walking away from the band, fans, and crew that he has loved for almost 50 years. For Kevin's part, he too has never had any intention of leaving the band, and the fans and crew mean the world to him as well. Due to this complex situation, irreconcilable differences arose between Bruce and Kevin. So it is with great sadness that we announce REO Speedwagon will cease touring effective January 1st, 2025. Neil, Kevin, and Bruce thank their fans for their years of loyal support and for giving back to the band so many wonderful memories that will remain with each of them forever. Okay, so this is the most obviously written by lawyers, not a lawyer, like a group of lawyers statement that I've ever read. If it was up to him... But it's not just up to him. Like, you can hear the argument. There are arguments in this statement. So, that should tell you about the disharmony that's going on behind the scenes for this band right now. It's a bizarre statement, and, I'll just come out and say it, a profoundly sad way for a legendary band like REO Speedwagon to come to an end. Because, make no mistake about it, REO Speedwagon is one of the great bands of classic rock. They are survivors. They are road warriors. They have been out there representing classic rock every single summer, every single year, playing to all kinds of audiences. Not just, the audiences that can afford, $65 plus tickets for arena shows. I mean, you can see them at county fairs, you could see them at casinos, all kinds of venues. They were one of the most fan-friendly and accessible bands in the whole realm of classic rock, and I love them for it. I've seen REO Speedwagon more than pretty much every other band in classic rock. There are 3 bands I've seen 7 times. REO Speedwagon, Steve Miller Band, and Trans-Siberian Orchestra. And Trans-Siberian Orchestra, to be frank, that was just a yearly Christmas tradition that I did when I was younger. I still love seeing them, don't get me wrong, but Steve Miller Band and REO Speedwagon, those are 2 of my favorite bands ever. That's why I always made the effort to see them when they were in town. I saw REO Speedwagon in 2008 at the Wisconsin State Fair, in 2009 at the Waukesha County Fair, in 2010 at the Riverside Theater. That was like a Christmas concert. In 2012, I saw them at the Washington County Fair out in West Bend. After that, I took a little bit of a break. I didn't see them again until the Wisconsin State Fair again in 2019, which was an excellent show. I think it set an attendance record for the Wisconsin State Fair at that point. And that concert honestly reminded me how much I love this band. And I saw them again along with Styx and Loverboy at the American Family Insurance Amphitheater in 2022. I posted a review of that show. And just recently, I saw them less than a year ago, November 2023, at the Venetian in Las Vegas as part of their an evening of high infidelity residency. I just happened to be out in Vegas that weekend, but we absolutely made a point to go see him. It was awesome. I will say I was overserved that night, so I don't remember a whole lot of that last show, which I regret. And when I say overserved, I mean I over-ordered, and I just don't remember a whole lot of that show. To my regret, because that might have been the last time that I'll ever see REO Speedwagon. I do have a couple of opportunities, I guess, before the end of this year, but that would involve, either going back out to Vegas before the end of the year or driving to, one of their tour dates in Illinois. And, I'm not happy with where the band is at right now, so I don't know if I'm going to make that effort. All this to say is that I love this band, and them coming off the road is really bad for classic rock fans who like seeing concerts every summer, because they were one of the few bands that you could reliably see at least once every 2 years. If your town had a mid-level venue, well, guess what? Every 2 or 3 years, you would at least get one chance to see REO Speedwagon. And if you lived in the Midwest, like I do, shoot, you'd have a chance to see him every year, And for a while, I basically did. And it was great. So why are they coming off the road again? Oh, yeah, because their bass player had back surgery and wanted to come back and play in the band again. And their lead singer didn't think he was physically up to it because, part of the thing with Bruce is that if he was to come back, at least this year, he'd have to play while sitting down. And obviously, Kevin was not into that, and here's the part where I piss off a bunch of Bruce Hall fans. And guess what? I'm going to piss off everybody in the REO Speedwagon fan community today. I'm a little fired up about this news, so I'm probably going to say something that everybody who likes REO Speedwagon will probably object to, so whatever. So if you're annoyed by what I'm about to say, don't worry, I'll annoy someone else next. I understand Kevin's perspective on this. I don't necessarily agree. I don't necessarily believe I would take the same approach, but I'm not in that position, so what I would do is irrelevant. Kevin Cronin is famous for being a very lively, energetic, and physically fit frontman. He's all over the stage every show. He's super enthusiastic. He gets the crowd on their feet. He talks at length between almost every song. He talks so much that sometimes it can be a little much, but seriously, you can criticize him on a number of fronts, but you can never say he was someone who phoned it in or lacked energy. So I expect that he expects at least a comparable amount of energy from the other guys in the band. He wants them to look good. He wants them to bring enthusiasm. And yeah, so do the fans. So perhaps from his perspective, the idea of one of the guys in his band sitting on a chair and playing is not ideal for him. And you might think that's unfair, and I would say I kind of do too, but I can understand him being like, come on, man, that's not going to make us look good, If he's thinking about the band as a whole, if he's thinking strictly about optics, I can understand his reservations. And I say this because I saw Genesis at the United Center back in 2021, where Phil Collins played the whole show while sitting down. And I love Genesis, and I love Phil Collins, so I had a great time, and I really consider myself lucky that I got a chance to see them play. And despite his physical condition, I'm really glad that Phil was able to do that, Last Domino tour, because I know that was really important to him. But all that said, yes, it was a little depressing. because Phil used to be a guy who, again, like Kevin, would be all over the stage in his heyday, and, now had to sit the whole show. So again, I don't necessarily agree with Kevin's position that having Bruce sit in a chair would not be acceptable, for REO. I really think diehard fans of REO would certainly be okay with it. But if Kevin has an expectation that everybody is up on their feet at the very least, I can understand him having this be the line in the sand where he says, no way, nobody's sitting in chairs. We are a party band, and we need to project that from the stage. So now that I've annoyed the Bruce fans in the audience, I will now turn my attention to Kevin Cronin and presumably piss off all of his fans who are watching now, because I absolutely have much harsher feelings about him. Because now that I've talked about Bruce's physical condition, the question is, do I think that Kevin's response in just ending the band outright is the appropriate step to take? Yeah, absolutely fucking not. This initially strikes me as incredibly impulsive, because there is obviously so much more going on here than just Bruce's back surgery. In fact, I bet Bruce's back surgery has very little to do with why the band is actually coming to an end. The key phrase in that statement from the band is irreconcilable differences. And I suspect that those irreconcilable differences have been building up for years, if not decades, and this was simply the last straw. Because forget about friendship. Forget about, you wouldn't do this to a friend who was recovering. This is a big-time money-making business partner. They're going to be leaving a lot of money on the table by shutting down the REO Speedwagon brand. In fact, I'm kind of stunned by this. It makes me think there must be some sort of financial aspect to this that we don't have, as fans, any visibility to. But I'm probably making this much more complicated than it needs to be. It probably boils down to personality differences. I mean, they might appear, cohesive and best buds on stage, but it wouldn't surprise me if those guys don't like each other at all. Because that dynamic actually has proven to break up bands in their later years. I mean, look at Fleetwood Mac. Lindsey Buckingham got kicked out of Fleetwood Mac mostly because he got on Stevie Nicks' nerves one too many times, and she had it. And she said, I'm in my golden years. I want to be around people that I love and make me happy. I don't want to be around people I'm fighting with. This just got reposted on social media. An interview that the Tommy Shaw and JY from Styx did. They were asked about why Dennis DeYoung, isn't back in the band, which has been answered 1,000 times, but they said something very similar. They were like, look, we're in the back end of our career. We've got a good thing going, and we just want to be around people that make us happy. We don't want to be around someone we're fighting with all the time. And it's simple, and it's sad, because it's just like, well, obviously you made it work in the past. Why can't you make it work now? And the reason is they could make it work now, but the switch is that they're all millionaires, so they don't have to make it work now. They have fans coming regardless. That's, if anything, one of the benefits of being in a faceless arena rock band, is that there's a whole bunch of people coming to those shows who don't care who's playing what, So they don't have to have Dennis DeYoung back in the band. And REO Speedwagon has done a profoundly good job of keeping whatever personality conflicts existed in that band pretty much under wraps for the most part. Obviously, there's one big exception, and I'll talk about that in a second. But that is my best guess at what's going on here. My best guess of what's actually going on here is that Bruce and Kevin have had, frankly, one disagreement too many, and I'm guessing Kevin is now in the same mindset that his buddies, Tommy Shaw and JY from Styx, are in, and he's thinking, you know what, I don't really want to be around a guy who I'm at odds with. And because of, presumably, their ownership deal, he can't fire Bruce. And obviously lawyers are involved now, so he was probably coming up on a potential legal battle with this deal of blocking Bruce from coming back in the band. And thought, you know what, screw it. Let's just shut this down. Next year, 2025, I'll tour as Kevin Cronin of REO Speedwagon. And I'll call my buddies in Styx, and I'll get that opening slot when they team up with, I don't know, Def Leppard or Train or whoever. And when they do their arena show next summer, I'll go out right with them, but I'll have the Don Felder spot. I'll have that opening spot with my new band, which will be young guys that I want to play with. And, from there, I'll just start building the Kevin Cronin solo brand. One thing that should tell you that there's some level of dysfunction in this band, they've totally abandoned recording new music. I mean, that last album of theirs, of original material, 2007. I actually remember that record. I kind of liked it. I saw them on the tour the year after supporting the record. I thought it was pretty good. They put out a Christmas album the year after that in 2009. They obviously owed the label another record, and they thought maybe the quickest way to do this was to knock out a Christmas album. And ever since then, there hasn't even been talk about a new REO Speedwagon album. I'm not saying I need one, but I am saying it's been almost 20 years, and that is kind of a long stretch, for a band to go without making music when it's a band that's together touring as regular as REO does. It's funny, I just heard on the radio this past weekend, I was listening to Off the Record with Uncle Joe Benson, one of the last great radio shows. And he was interviewing Joey Kramer from Aerosmith. And Joey Kramer told this story about how, way back in the day, the early days of Aerosmith, Steven Tyler said to him, we don't have to be friends to be in a band together. And how that caught him totally off guard, because he thought the whole point of being in a band is that you were friends. But even back then, Steven Tyler was subtly saying, hey, we're kind of not friends. And, that kind of foretold, 40, 50 years later, how cold Aerosmith was to Joey Kramer when he had some health issues. And they kind of blocked him out of the band for a little while. When I saw Bruce's daughter post her video on Instagram, this is what I thought of. I thought of Joey Kramer being blocked out of Aerosmith. I thought of Stephanie Calvert from Starship, who was a guest on this show a couple of years ago, who said she was pushed out of Starship entirely because she got sick. And Mickey Thomas used that as an opportunity to find a newer, younger female vocalist to take over her spot. And it, crushed her, And what I said to her then was, I had just been reading a bunch of Bob Dylan biographies, and, back in the day, Bob Dylan was known for doing this. Someone in his band got sick, needed some time off. That was his opportunity to find a new player and just kind of subtly, push the old one out. And that sucks. But it's an old showbiz saying, don't get sick. And Bruce Hall obviously wasn't sick, but he was off the road. And even though REO posted a status about it, November 2023, saying, quote, Bruce is our brother, and times like these test us all. We have faith that Bruce's surgery will be successful, and that he will make a complete recovery, and that he will be back to being the hard-rocking bassist singer that we all know. Bruce has our love and support, as we have encouraged him to take all the time he needs to get himself back to 100% strength. And then, tellingly, right after this, there's another line. There is an unspoken pact in our band that we give it all we've got all the time, leave it all on the stage every night, and to do our best to live up to my expression that, quote, rock and roll will keep you young forever. And that's from Kevin Cronin. And, I guess the key phrase in that statement was, live up to my expression. And, subtly kind of foretelling that it's his call if Bruce is up to, his standards or whatever. Obviously, I'm reading too deep into that, but you know what I mean. So yeah, this is it. This is the end of REO Speedwagon. I don't know the future for really all of the guys in the band. Bruce Hall has said on Facebook that he's absolutely heartbroken by it, which I understand. He laments that there should have been a farewell tour, of which I totally agree. If any band deserves a farewell tour, it's REO Speedwagon, because their whole thing, especially in the 21st century, has been touring. If you've seen him in concert, you know that Kevin Cronin loves to say something to the effect of, REO's a party band, and then goes on for another 20 minutes about whatever. But touring is the core of their identity, especially in their later years. And they're a great touring act. And if it had to come to an end, they absolutely should have taken the opportunity to do it right, so they could express their thank yous to the people who come and see them again and again and again, and for the fans who have been used to seeing them regularly, to basically give them some closure, like Kiss did. Kiss did a great farewell tour, and I believe it was a genuine one. I don't think they're coming back. And I hate to say it, but I also don't really think REO Speedwagon's coming back. At least not this lineup. This isn't something that's going to be resolved next year. We're not going to see a post of, well, Kevin and Bruce got together. No, this is the time where these guys are going to do the stuff that they had been putting off for years. If Kevin ever wanted to do a solo album, now's his chance. And if he does do a solo album, I would bet 10 to 1. Here's my prediction for Kevin Cronin if he does a solo album. It will be a duets record with all his celebrity friends. It will be songs that he grew up on, but it will be duets with guys like Tommy Shaw and James Young from Styx. It'll be Pat Monahan from Train. Don Felder will show up and play guitar on something, And it will be something that absolutely nobody needs, because those are the most disposable type of records in classic rock. God bless Dolly Parton for her Rockstar album. Bob Seger has one of these type of albums. It's all nice. It's cool that, artists got together to collaborate. But you know what? The word for those albums are inessential. Not improvements on the original material. Just a nice little novelty, but at its core, vanity project. And I will bet you 10 to 1 that is probably what Kevin will do. What Bruce is going to do? I have no idea. I know he can sing, but I don't know if he's thinking he's going to do a solo act. If I had to guess, I wouldn't be surprised if he takes 2025 off, because here's the thing. I bet he does actually need additional time to fully recover. Because I think his mentality is like, I'm good enough. I'm good enough to play. But obviously, if he needs a chair, he's not back to 100%. So, I bet he'll take a year off. I hope he takes a year off to properly recover all the way, get to where he needs to be, and hopefully he'll come back with either by joining another legacy band, and he'll be on his feet. Maybe after he does his physical therapy, he hits the gym and comes out, and he can basically shove it in Kevin's face and, be that rock star again. But I couldn't even guess at what his future will be, because I don't think he was expecting this. So we'll see. I'll keep covering this. I'll post whatever I hear on social media. I don't know if I'll talk about it again. You know what I'd really like? I would like one of them to write a book. Because there's no, tell-all book about REO Speedwagon. One thing I really do have to give them credit for is that they've kept such a tight lid on all their inner band drama. The only time any of that ever kind of slipped out was over their original guitar player, Gary Richrath. There's a whole lot of fan resentment about how Gary was handled in the band, but he basically had to exit the band because of his demons, his alcoholism, his addictions. He had real trouble, and there's a lot of fans who felt that Kevin was not adequately empathetic to him and didn't make enough of an effort to bring Gary back into the fold. Now, Gary did make little one-off guest appearances from time to time, but he was never invited back as a full member. Now, if you look up any photos or video from the last time Gary performed with REO Speedwagon, and I hate to say this because he's no longer with us, but you'll understand why he wasn't brought back into the band. He was in a bad way at the end, and obviously not up to the job for being in a full-time touring outfit. Now, I will say, I've seen the REO Speedwagon Behind the Music episode, and that episode ends on one of the strangest notes of any of those shows. Because it ends with Gary being sober and the producers asking both Kevin and Gary about Gary coming back into the band.
Both say that thoughts of reuniting are on their minds.
If Kevin and I could get back on the right terms, on the terms that he and I both would want, I'd love to do a new album.
It would be great to have, the Gary Richrath of 1978 to 1981 with the me from now together.
And Kevin says something along the lines of, I just hope I get that phone call from Gary telling me that he's up and ready to go, that he's back to the old Gary of 1981, and he's ready to go out on the road and be that guy again.
The door has always been open to Gary, but in order to walk through that door, Gary has to be willing to make the same choices and to have the same dedication and the same self-discipline that the rest of us have taken on. What I was hoping for was to get a call from Gary saying, dude, I'm coming over to your house today, I'm bringing my guitar, let's go.
And then it cuts to Gary, who is obviously told about that comment, and he says something like, oh, Kevin wants a phone call? Okay, well, I'm on camera right now, so this is my phone call. Yeah, I want back in.
This is a phone call, Kevin? Yes, I want to, if you want to do it in the right way. And so that's a phone call, as far as I'm concerned.
And there's kind of a bizarre feel to all of it. I might be reading too much into this, but it seemed a little disingenuous, and it seemed a little tense. It seemed that there wasn't actually a whole lot of love lost between these guys, and that might be echoing all these years later between Kevin and Bruce. So I think that's all I got to say on this matter. I've gone on for way too much as it is. If you have any insight into what's going on between these guys, if you've heard anything, please post, what you know in the comments below, and we'll keep the conversation going. Guys, I'm just bummed out by the whole thing because, like I said at the beginning, I really do think this is arguably the worst news for the world of classic rock in 2024 because, again, REO Speedwagon was such a reliable band for classic rock fans who have increasingly limited options for who we can go out and see every summer. REO was one of those bands that, in my mind, I figured would be solid at least until the end of the 2020s. And see how quickly that can disappear. So I guess my last message here is see these bands while you still can, because there's a whole lot of stuff that we as fans don't see, and news like this can realistically hit at any moment. And now there are just so few of these bands that tour as much as REO does every year. And, our concert schedules are getting lighter and lighter every year, which is a real shame. I don't understand why they didn't just say, hey, guess what? We're taking 2025 off. We'll reconvene and look at our options in 2026. This was a lesson that Motley Crue should have known, back in 2014. I don't know why REO can't give that approach a chance in 2024. So, like I said, I will continue to cover this story on my social media, so please give us a follow on social media. The links are in the description below. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you're a fan of classic rock, I have absolutely talked about other artists that you're a fan of on this channel, so please subscribe and please take a look at some of the videos that are posted here. And again, if you are that fan of classic rock, I also do a podcast that's all about classic rock. We've had a lot of great guests on lately, and I'm sure there's some stuff you'll enjoy there. So with that, thanks again for watching, and keep rocking.
Sure.